So, there is a lot of debate on what is creation. So, all over the world, this concept of creation is debated as a hot topic. Um, there are many religions which talk about creation where God created the different kind of life forms. There are the atheists who believe that there is no specific requirement for a God as such to create any life form. Life forms got created as a natural evolutionary process. Each one is entitled to his or her own opinion of what creation itself is. But what I would like to talk about today is how the Hindu spiritual systems regard creation and how they deal with this topic. So, broadly, in the Hindu religious systems, spiritual systems, and then the religious systems are things which are created around the Hindu spiritual systems. But the core is the spiritual system. In the spiritual systems, creation is not about a life being created, but it's about the life existing always from time immemorial to time infinite. There is a time continuum. There was never a time a life did not exist, and there will never be a time when life ceases to exist. But that's not how we understand life today, right? We all know about animals, people taking birth, people are dying. So what is the meaning of saying that life always existed and it is never going to cease to exist? Life starts at birth and life ends at death, is the common understanding of what life itself is. But then, in the Hindu spiritual systems, a life spans across multiple births and deaths. In other words, a particular soul, its existence is what life is. That means that the life of a soul never has a beginning and it never has an end. It only has phases where it takes birth, that is, it acquires a gross body like this kind of a body, and then it sheds this kind of a body and goes away. So, if you think about it, being born is nothing but getting a physical gross body like this, and dying is nothing but just shedding this body away. Life does not stop. The soul does not stop living. Therefore, life does not stop. Now, this is true for living beings. When you talk about a soul, when you talk about something which is sentient, that is, it can, something which lives. But what about non-living things, inanimate objects? The earth, the trees, the sky. What about these things, right? These also need to be created, right? So we need to give an explanation of what creation means, not just for life forms, which we can equate to souls, but we also need to give an explanation for what creation means with respect to an earth where a life form can live, and other inanimate objects. Now, essentially, the concept of creation, the concept of creation in the Hindu spiritual systems has got to do with the notion that the elementary forms, like imagine them, for example, as at a gross level, right? We can think of atoms or subatomic particles inside the atoms, or the quarks, or whatever it may be, right? These don't cease to exist, or whatever makes the quarks or the quantum particles come into existence and get out, whatever makes them come into existence and get out, those things don't cease to exist. They are always around. But when those things come together and form a gross body like this body, or it could be the earth that we see, it could be a tree that is in front of you, it could be a car that you see in front of you, whatever it may be, right? When elementary particles come together, like how sand comes together to form a pot, like how particles of sand or mud come together to form a pot. In a very similar fashion, the elementary particles come together to form the most fundamental aspects of life that we see around us. So, elementary particles, when they come together and take a shape, so elementary particles, think of them as quarks or anything even smaller than quarks which may be discovered in the future. When elementary particles, they always exist. When they come together and take a shape of, let's say, a pot or a car or a tree or a body like this, that taking shape is defined as creation. In other words, the Hindu spiritual system's notion of creation is consistent with the laws of conservation of mass, energy, and all other laws of conservation. Why do I say that? We are not talking about, if you realize, matter disappearing, which is inconsistent. That would be inconsistent with the law of conservation of matter, law of conservation of energy, mass, and so on, right? Nothing disappears. It's always there. So let's put all these things together, right? As far as inanimate things or matter is concerned, the Hindu spiritual systems believe in a Srishti and Pralaya cycle, that is, creation and destruction cycle. You can roughly correlate this with a big bang and a big collapse, if you will, right? But I would not go so far to extrapolate and match these two things, but nevertheless, as far as matter is concerned, you can think of a Srishti, which is creation, where elemental forms or whatever caused those elemental forms, right? Elemental particles, quantum particles, or whatever it may be, whatever caused those things to come into existence and become the universe and form different shapes, these things which were lying dormant fired and they came into existence. They came and formed what we can see and touch and feel. And at the end of the creation cycle, the end is called pralaya. At the end of the cycle, all the forms and shapes of the universe that we get to see go back to the elemental form, or whatever caused the elemental form, and go back as that abstract concept and lie dormant until the next Srishti cycle starts. Right? So this is the concept of Srishti and Pralaya as far as inanimate matter is concerned in Hindu spiritual systems. Coming back to animate or souls, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Natvevaham jatunasam natvam neme janadipa. So there was never a time where you and all these souls that surround you did not exist, nor will there be a time where all the souls will cease to exist. We are always there, we are always around. We reach a certain state of liberation at the end of the creation cycle, Srishti Pralaya cycle. We reach a kind of a liberation state, and after that there is no more birth and death, right, for the soul, which means it stops taking a body like this, losing the body, gaining the body, losing the body. This kind of a cycle stops for the soul, right, and it reaches a state of liberation. There are infinite number of souls, and for every new cycle of Srishti and Pralaya, a new batch of souls basically come into the creation, which is samsara, and they find their way out to creation, to liberation, right? So broadly, this is the flow of how we understand creation itself, both with respect to animate, which is living entities, and the non-living entities, which is like matter. How do they get created and how do they get ended in a creation destruction cycle, which these cycles keep repeating again and again for time infinity, from time immemorial to time infinite, right? So this is the concept of how Hinduism deals with creation, right? So it's not like it's not like God creates the souls fresh. It's not like He bakes a cookie, a soul cookie, and He comes into existence, and then He finally gets to hell or heaven or whatever, right? Nor does God create matter out of thin air. God is also, in some of the schools within Hinduism, is considered as an ever existing. If it is a theistic school, God also is considered as a always existing entity in parallel for time immemorial with all the rest of the souls, and matter also never ceases to exist. So God, matter, souls, all of them exist, have been existing forever and will exist forever, right? So this is how Hinduism comes up with a solution to solve the mysteries of creation. Hope this was useful, this was helpful. Would love to hear your comments and thoughts in the field below. Thank you for your time.